Hello, everybody. Welcome to our live stream, Distinguishing Reality. I'm here with Betty, and we are going to have an exploration around this whole thing. And it's all based on Margaret Laird's pamphlet, A Letter to My Students. It was a letter she wrote to her students that we have then put into a pamphlet. And that's available from the scientificmetaphysics.org website from the IMS. And just to let you know that the IMS is the sponsor of our live stream. We were established in 1959 as a Margaret Laird Foundation, researching, exploring, living, and teaching the science of being and the causal nature of consciousness. And the website is www.scientificmetaphysics.org. That's where you can purchase that and any of the other books mentioned here, besides Science and Health, which you can get at through the Christian Science Church. All right. So moving right along, at the present level of belief, we use the terms God and man to signify creator and creation. In science, God does not create, but reflects himself. Hence, creation is reflection. Reflection is God's realization of himself. All is mind, capital M, infinitely manifested. The divinity of man does not come to view in world belief by a path of increasing human perfection, but comes to view as the knowing of God. And when you understand man to be God's self-conscious identity, you will have no temptation to believe that man can be God. Man cannot know either God or man as another being if man exists as reflection. The absolute embraces the relative interpretation of itself at every belief level. From the science standpoint, earthly experience or one's world image is the functioning of divine principle, and as self-realization of the absolute. Viewed from the standpoint of earthly experience, it's utterly and entirely separated from principle, and thus is pure illusion. And that is all from Margaret Laird's pamphlet to my students. All right, welcome, Betty. How are you today?
Pretty good.
All right, excellent. Anything else you want to add into the preamble of what we're going to be exploring tonight?
It's kind of a sticky or a wordy kind of thing that we're discussing this time, but we'll try to be as simple with it as we can. When we're representing what Margaret has written, sometimes it gets a bit wordy, but when you really look at it, it's pretty simple statements. So we'll try to keep it easy.
Okay, here we go. All right, so let's dive in. So in A Letter to My Students, written by Margaret Laird, she wrote, reflection is God's realization of himself. All is mind infinitely manifest.
Yep.
Okay. And if anyone has any questions, comments, anything, just type them into the comments box. When we're live, we'll go ahead and bring those in and answer everything that we can and include that in the conversation. So we welcome any participation in that sense also. Go ahead, Betty.
I was just going to comment on that word reflection, which Mrs. Eddy says very few understand what she means in the use of that word. So this reflection, which identifies the God idea, is the God idea identifying itself. And that action is man. It's what we've called man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I just wanted to reinforce on that word reflection, because we think when we look in the mirror that we got two things going on.
Right.
But actually what you see is yourself. And you know you're not over there in that picture you're looking at. So the God idea is the presence that has the picture show up, but it's not in the picture.
I like that. That's actually a really good way to engage at this is that we know we look in the mirror and we know that we're not over there in the mirror.
That's right.
And that's the same thing that you've just equated to in the world here and the creator or the consciousness that sources all of that.
Yeah, and she started out by identifying the word creator and creation as not something going on as an action separate from each individual.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually the presence of one thing going on. And we're
Right.
looking for words that we can use to express these ideas. And sometimes they succeed wonderfully, and other times they give you a problem. So we're trying to grapple right now with the word reflection.
Okay. All right. Very good. And then also on page 7, she goes on to write, man is the thinking or thought, which is mind acknowledging itself in infinity of manifestation.
Yep.
Anything more you want to say about that?
No, I think that's pretty clear.
Clear as mud. All right. Very good. So we'll go on. So in Science and Health, Mary Baker Eddy on page 504, starting on line 8 to 11, wrote it this way. The divine mind creates all identities, and they are forms of mind, the ideas of spirit apparent only as mind.
Yep. That's really a good statement.
You want to break it down a bit?
You didn't think it was clear? It doesn't.
I haven't had all your years of study in reading this over and over and over. So just walk me through it.
Well, the divine mind is the God idea.
Mm-hmm.
So it is the source and condition of everything that is or seems to be.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just trying to identify the occurrence called man.
Okay.
And the occurrence called man is an action of the God idea. And
Okay.
Mrs. Eddy termed it reflection.
Okay. But in here she says, look, so divine mind, capital M, creates all identities. So that makes them forms of mind.
Yep.
And
ideas of spirit.
The ideas of spirit apparent only as mind.
Yeah. So when we see a thing,
okay,
what we're seeing is our concept. We aren't seeing the idea at all. We're seeing our best take on it because we are looking at it through the filter of believing we're human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And the references here are pretty straightforward. Dealing with the God idea in action is the only man there is.
Right.
None of that is visible as language. But we have language because all of that is present.
Right.
And our view of it is never it. It's a view.
Mm-hmm.
And we call that the world we walk through.
Right.
And so the world we walk through is our current view of the divinity shaping humanity.
Okay.
This is what it looks like to me. And it changes all the time because I'll say, oh, I got a new idea about that. And that's going to change everything that I have going on in that little bailiwick.
Right.
Yeah. So we want to be accurate.
Okay. All right. Got it. And Sarah Busey says complete. Sarah Busey says complete.
Meaning?
So that was her comment.
Completed?
Complete.
Complete with an exclamation mark.
Yes.
Wonderful, Sarah. Thank you.
There you go.
I'll stop talking right now.
All right. Now you got to take that off. Okay. So then in Mind is the Athlete on page 92, you wrote, all living, all aliveness exists within and as consciousness.
Yep.
So there's no aliveness in the reflection.
Of course there is. It has no life separate from the God idea.
Right.
That
But
is-
if I look in the mirror over there, there's no aliveness over there in the mirror.
No,
There's a
there's nothing over
reflection.
there. There's
Huh?
nothing over there.
That's
You
what
walk
I'm
in,
saying.
there's nothing there.
Right. So then in the reflection, there would be no aliveness there.
No, the reflection is not over there. That's your perception of yourself.
Ah,
But
okay.
who you are doesn't move over there.
Right.
You walk down the street and over there has disappeared.
Right.
So the language look of you is not who you are. Never is.
Right. There's no aliveness there.
No, there's nothing
That's
going
what I
on
was
there at all.
saying. It's exactly what I was saying. Okay. We have another comment. This is awesome. So Sarah Busey says, not incomplete or needing anything, not separate from that completeness.
That's very good. Thank you. Right on, Sarah.
Very
It's
cool.
Sally. I never called her Sarah.
I know, Sally. All right. So moving on with that, for more discussion on also in your book on page 92, you wrote, consciousness, self-aware, shows up in language as form. Without consciousness, there would be no language world.
Yep.
Okay.
You have it on good authority that we live and move and have being divinely, no matter what we look at it and call it,
Mm-hmm.
no matter how we language it to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I am guilty of thinking I'm Betty quite often, and I have to catch it all the time.
Right. Yeah. Okay, I get that. All right. And we got a thumbs up. No, we got a smiley face from Sally. Okay. All right. So now in Letter to My Students, Margaret Laird on page 8 wrote, truth comes to view in world belief as the evolution of consciousness.
Yep. And read the note.
I'm getting there. The interplay of opposites in one's world image, resulting in a new concept of life, will cease to cause suffering when such seeming action is understood to be the human yielding to the divine under the pressure of truth.
Yep. You know, your perception varies a lot with your interaction with your language world
Mm-hmm.
and your understanding of what's actually present when that language world shows up
Mm-hmm.
and you show up.
Mm-hmm.
So it varies. And so we get discouraged when that variance looks like the human not happy. And we think mistakenly, but we think it anyway, that our job is to make that human being happy. And that's not true.
Right.
And the effort to make it happy persists the unhappy. You know, if you pay attention to language, it hangs around.
Mm-hmm.
You get all caught up in it and figuring it out and fixing it and shaping it and moving it and dressing it up and dressing it down and so on.
Right.
That makes it all hang around.
Right.
But when you want to be clear, you want to let go of any tendency you have
Mm-hmm.
to see the language world, the seen, heard, felt, the look, the concept stuff that we walk through every day.
Mm-hmm.
When you're trying to see that as if it were something,
Yep.
then you're hooked. And it persists and persists and persists, whatever.
Right.
So the freedom is not trying to fix that. It's leaving it alone.
Right.
The freedom is reflectively present as freedom when you leave the concept, the view, alone. So you stop trying to fix it and you say, oh, I see. I don't know why it looks that way. I've heard Margaret Laird say, but the hell with it.
Right.
Because what's present is reality.
Yeah.
And this is the way I see it. But that presence never varies in quality of being. Whole, perfect, complete, fulfilled, so on, satisfied, pure love, present every moment.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very good. Okay. And in Science and Health on page 401, starting on line 16, Mary Baker Eddy wrote, chemicalization is the upheaval produced when immortal truth is destroying erroneous mortal belief.
Exactly.
So I always get hung up by the word chemicalization. I'm sorry, but can you just break that down a little bit?
Well, chemicalization, I should have looked it up in the dictionary, but it is the action that shows up in our concept of things that changes from one form to another.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like dropping one of those fizzy tablets in water and it goes.
Right. Okay.
That's chemicalization.
All right.
You know, so it's.
So when she says it's the upheaval produced when immortal truth is destroying erroneous mortal belief.
Yep.
So what is that? It's that. What would that look like in somebody's life? What would that?
It probably looked like I don't feel too good today.
Like a cold or something like that, or
anything inharmonious that comes up, any threat to your well-being, any sense that you should fix something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's you're hooked by chemicalization if you're trying to fix something.
Okay. All right. I'll play with that idea. Okay, good. Hooked by chemicalization. That's what I'm going to say. When we're going to be in a conversation, I'm going to say, I'm just hooked by chemicalization.
Have fun with that, Kim.
All right. Anyways. Okay. All substance, intelligence, wisdom, being, immortality, cause, and effect belong to God.
Yep.
And could I also say belongs to consciousness?
Well, to God being, whatever
Belongs
that
to
is.
consciousness, mind, spirit, soul.
Truth, love, yes, principle.
Okay.
You bet.
All substance, intelligence, wisdom, being, immortality, cause, and effect
belong to the God idea.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
That's different from thinking it belongs to me, so I'm going to fix it.
Right.
It was mine, you know?
Because the me is just reflection.
The me doesn't even exist because I'm talking about
But I'm saying it's a reflection.
No, it doesn't exist at all. It's my point of view of reflection, calling it Betty.
Oh, got it. A point of view of reflection. Okay. All right. This is why this is a tough subject.
Yep.
All right. Okay. And then in your book on page 93, you say being is always poised on the brink of the unknown, focused on the impossible, and allowing for the unimaginable.
Yeah. And the thing that you really become familiar with as you work along in metaphysics is that it's already complete. It's the done coming to view in a way that you can understand it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the laboratory of everyday living is all about.
Mm-hmm.
This is the world I walk through every day is the best thing I've got to figure out who I am and what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's my laboratory of self-discovery, and that self is capital S. It's my laboratory of seeing the divinity of all being. And what it looks like is just what it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to pay attention to understanding what it is that's present.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if I look at this statement and say being is always poised on the brink of the unknown,
Mm-hmm.
focused on the impossible, allowing for the unimaginable, and then I look in my life and my life is just ho-hum, that's
Mm-hmm.
just my point of view of that.
Well, yes, and you are ignoring the nature of the being that is being you,
Mm-hmm.
because that being is infinite, and infinity, no duplicates, no repetitions, always new, always fresh, always different. No repetition, no duplication,
Right.
remember?
So
None.
that's where curiosity comes in.
Well, curiosity comes in all over the place, but this is why you don't lean on it saying it's always been that way. Can't change now.
Right.
I know it. I was that way when I was little. It's that way now. And it's like those things that said, what's good enough for my father is good enough for me.
Right.
No, it's never been good enough 1 second after you notice anything.
Right. Because it's always changing, always new,
Always
always.
on the move.
So
And
when I get caught up in a ho-hum experience or point of view, shame on me.
yeah, you're caught up in the Kim thing. It's like standing in the mirror saying, what should I do to fix this? Well,
Right.
let's see.
Right. Right. Okay. All right. I got it. All right. And satisfaction and fulfillment derive from the self-conscious experience of wholeness and completeness in living yourself responsibly as consciousness, the presence and existence of the entire world you walk through.
Yep.
Okay.
So you can look at your experience of satisfaction, your experience of fulfillment. In fact, your experience in almost any direction of thought.
Uh-huh.
And your experience tells you, it's like feedback. Excuse me. It's like feedback. It's telling me all the time what it is I believe.
Yeah.
And then when a oh dear comes up, I know that I've got something and I've been hooked on something.
Yeah.
It's time to let go of it. And the minute I leave it alone, totally leave it alone, don't try to fix it. Don't try to repair it so it'll fit in better.
Mm-hmm.
Leave it alone.
Yep.
You leave that basis of belief, and all that's left is reality present.
Mm-hmm.
And you're home free.
Okay. Yep. All right. And on page 8, Margaret Laird wrote in her letter to my students, as the world image is believed to be an objective universe, it will apparently progress out of itself through revolution instead of non-being through revelation.
Yep. It's like saying you will do it through suffering rather than science.
Because that'll get our attention and get us to move off the dime.
Well, yes, if you aren't if you aren't listening, I mean consciously listening
Mm-hmm.
to the reality present, you're going to be caught up in the look of it, the chemicalization. And then that makes you pay attention to all those details. And you say, okay, I got it. And then you can walk on.
Right. Okay. Understood. All right. And in Science and Health, Mary Baker Eddy on 301, starting on line 10, said, spiritual man reflects the divine, which constitutes the only real and eternal entity.
Yep.
And there's that reflection.
And that sentence, which sounds like it's something from some remote area called where the God idea is, that area is right where you are, being who you are, and how are you seeing yourself?
Mm-hmm.
So the question is always in front of your nose, who am I being?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the story that Margaret told about talking with Bicknell Young about a problem or whatever. And he says, now who's talking? You or Margaret?
Mm-hmm.
And you can talk to yourself that way. Who's talking here? Understanding or my point of view?
Right.
A language belief system,
Right.
you know? Chances are you know the answer to that when you ask the question.
Right.
Because if you weren't uncomfortable in some degree, you wouldn't be asking the question.
Right. Right.
I don't know why it's true, but human beings really rarely do anything if there's no push to do it.
Right.
And the push to do it looks like, oh dear, this is a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. The meaning of constitute is to form, to make up, as being the constitutive element. God constitutes man, but man does not constitute God. And I think that's a letter to from Margaret Laird, a letter to my students on page 7.
Right. And that's important because I've had people call to talk and they said, well, then man is God. And I said, nope. So this is addressing that. And if you really have that come up in your life, get this little booklet and see what else Margaret has to say on this very subject.
Okay. All right. And then you, on page 127 of your book, Mind is the Athlete, you wrote, consciousness or cause in action generatively demonstrates its identity.
Yep.
And that would be showing up. Right. And that would be showing up the only way I can see it. Right.
It shows up and you identify it in language you understand.
Right. Okay.
In language you're comfortable with.
Right.
Yeah. The only time that you really dig into making things clear for yourself is when this thing that you think you are is not comfortable.
Right.
Oh dear, I lost that. Oh my goodness, that's terrible. I'll never find it. Or, oh dear, no job. What am I going to do? How am I going to pay my bills? Oh dear, all of that stuff. That's when you pay attention.
Right.
And so that tells you why your language world serves you so well. It keeps your attention focused.
Right. 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 Totally. All right. And the self, capital S, infinitely presencing, attends to every minute facet of evidence in its self-conscious act of being aware.
Yep. Isn't that a good little sentence?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like Margaret. She used to say, isn't that well said?
All right. And I will say that this will be our last episode of the year. We'll be back in 2 weeks on the 2nd of January.
We will?
Is that right? That's 2nd of January.
It's going to be the 9th.
The 2nd is a Tuesday. The 9th, I'm not in town.
Oh, that's why we moved it up. Okay, fine.
So it's the 2nd is when we'll start. And that will be in the new year. So I want to wish everybody a really happy holiday. And if you have any time at all to reflect on all of this, we have lots of videos you can go catch up on and listen to any of those. And we welcome all your participation. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. And if you want to support this live stream ongoingly and our production of it and everything, please go out to scientificmetaphysics.org and click /donate, and you can make a charitable contribution that is tax deductible in the United States. So we would love all your support and everything else. And thank you so much. And we will see you on the 2nd of January. So we'll see you then.